Okay, I am setting out to take you through the Bible. And two reasons for this. Number one, I want to make the Bible understandable. And number two, I want to show you the heart and mind of God. I want you to know his heart and I want you to know his mind because I want you to experience the great love that God has for you. And if you hang around the Bible, it will change how you think. If you think the way the world thinks, you'll only get what the world has, which is mostly misery. But if you start thinking the way God thinks, a whole new world opens up for you, and you'll find in Him the truth that sets you free, strength to weather any storm, peace beyond understanding, joy that puts the color back into the world, and love that gives life its deepest meaning. And I want all of that for you. With that in mind, I plan to take you through every verse of the Bible, but I don't plan to present those verses in the exact order in which you'll find them in the Bible. And here's why. Number one, there's nothing sacred about the order of the 66 books in the Bible. It's just a way a group of ancient scribes decided to arrange them. Number two, I don't want you to get bogged down. If I go from Genesis to Revelation, by the time I get to Leviticus, you're probably going to bail. I mean, maybe not, but you might be tempted. So I'm not going to do it that way. Instead, I plan to include passages from the New Testament and the Old Testament on each video. I'm going to do this to help you connect the dots so that you can walk away with some really important insights. The Bible is like a jigsaw puzzle. When you put the pieces together correctly, a beautiful picture emerges. But when you put them together wrong, the result is ugly. So I'll be using my own rendering of the Bible. I need to do this for copyright purposes, but I invite you to compare what I share with you with your favorite translation, and hopefully we'll uncover God's message together. And from time to time, I'll be sharing some thoughts about what the passage means. And by the way, what's the best translation of the Bible? It's the one that you understand. It's the one that makes the original meaning clear to you. My aim is to get you through the entire Bible in 365 videos. That means an average of about 86 verses each video, give or take. All of these videos will be part of a playlist, and I'll link to the playlist in the description. Today, we're looking at creation starting in Genesis, but we're not confining ourselves to Genesis. So, with that all said, without further ado, here we go. Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 through chapter 2, verse 3. It started here. God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth found itself in a state of chaos. Darkness covered the waters. There was neither shape nor form. All was empty. But God's Spirit was there, ready for what came next. God spoke, "Let there be light." Light began, and God saw that it was good. Dark and light, night and day, separated by God, named by God, the first day was complete. God spoke into being, a space between the waters below and the waters above. He called that space sky. Evening and morning made it a second day. Then God told the waters below to gather in one place, and he ordered the dry land to appear. The water he called seas, and the land earth. This is good, he thought. Then he called into being all kinds of trees and plants, each capable of reproducing its own kind. Again he thought, this is good. Evening and morning made this day 3. Then God invited lights to shine in the sky, the sun in the day, the moon at night, and the stars as well. These kept time, creating seasons, days, years. Evening and morning, day 4. With his words, God created all kinds of creatures to fill the water and birds to fill the sky. He said to them, "Reproduce and multiply to fill the seas and the sky." This was good in God's sight. Another evening and morning, day 5. God spoke to the earth and allowed it to bring forth all kinds of different animals, cattle, insects, reptiles, you name it. God thought, "This is good." God said, "Let us make people, modeled after ourselves, reflecting who we are. Let them be in charge of all creation." That's exactly what God did. He created male and female, allowing and encouraging them to reproduce, fill the earth and run it. God offered grain and fruit to the humans as food, and any kind of vegetation to the animals as food. Then God surveyed everything he had made and smiled. "This is really, really good," he said to himself. Evening and morning, day 6 was over. Creation was complete. God made day 7 a special day to enjoy everything he had made. That ends the reading in Genesis. Here are some thoughts. The Bible starts where it should, at the beginning. By kicking off the most important book in history with these words, God tells us something. We need to pay attention to where things started. God cares about how things began. Do you have a problem? If you go to God for the solution, He will probably take you back to where the problem began, and there you and He will correct it together. Go back far enough, and you will find God. And if you need it, you will also find a new beginning. In addition, notice that God gives form to those things that have not yet taken shape. When our lives don't make sense, God is here giving shape to our dreams and our experience. And the day will come when our eyes are opened and we will see what has always been there, but is now hidden from our sight. So, okay, let me address the elephant in the room. Did human beings evolve from single-celled organisms over a period of hundreds of millions of years? Or were we created 6,000 years ago? Or did something else happen? Here's my answer. I wasn't there. You weren't there. When the universe began, when life began, when humanity began, we weren't there. But God was. He's the only one in the room with first-hand information, and he's the only one who can speak with absolute authority about what happened. And so, how does he speak? He speaks through the Bible, and he speaks through science. The message from God through the Bible and the message from God through science is the same. If we think they contradict, it's because either A, we don't understand the Bible, and or B, we don't understand the science. So whatever happened, however it happened, God is our creator. And the message of creation reverberates throughout the Bible. For example, it shows up again in the Ten Commandments as conveyed in Exodus 20. Exodus 20, verses 8 through 11. "Remember how I formed the heavens and the earth in 6 days, but on the 7th day I stopped, surveyed all I had made, and smiled? I want you to remember that smile and make it part of the rhythm of your life. One day each week, pause and celebrate with me. We call this day the Sabbath. Work hard on other days, but reserve this day for rest and renewal. This command is for everyone and guards the dignity of all, regardless of class, gender, or privilege." Later on, in Proverbs, the book of practical wisdom, we're taken back to creation in chapter 8. Here in chapter 8, wisdom personified speaks in verses 22 through 31. What did God have before he created anything? Me. Wisdom. Before oceans, before mountains, before hills, fields, or anything in the world, before the heavens and the horizon, before waves and shoreline, before any of it, I was there. I was like a child set free, having so much fun, reveling in God's creation, delighting in the dawn of humanity. So that's from Solomon, the writer of Proverbs. 200 years later, during a time of national decline and imminent invasion, the prophet Isaiah called the people of God back to a vision of the magnificence of God. And one way he did this was to remind people of God's power as the Creator. For example, Isaiah 40, verse 26. Look up. See the stars? Who made them? Who named each one? God, of course. By his power, he set their course in the heavens, and he accounts for every single one. In both the Old Testament and the New Testament, when God is introduced to pagan people who didn't have the Bible or a shared collective experience with God, his role as creator takes center stage. Remember the Old Testament prophet Jonah, who was told by God to go to the city of Nineveh and to warn them of impending destruction. Jonah took off in the opposite direction to try to run away from God. He got on a ship, got out to sea, and then a storm threatened to swallow the ship they were on. The sailors looked around for someone to blame, and they found Jonah. They knew he was running away from God, but they didn't really understand what that meant until Jonah spelled it out to them. Jonah 1:9. Jonah told the sailors, I'm a Hebrew. My God isn't some junior varsity God. He's the creator of heaven and earth, the one who made the ocean and the shore. That's when those sailors started taking Jonah and his God very seriously. Centuries later, when the early Christian leader Paul was talking to pagan intellectuals in Athens, Greece, he introduced God this way. Acts 17:24. The God who created everything is in charge of heaven and earth. You couldn't confine him to anything humans could build. So the message in the Bible is clear. God created us. We did not create him. He's way, way bigger than us. We can't change him. If we change our theological beliefs, God does not change. If we change our political beliefs, God does not change. God is not created by our faith. We cannot tame him. We cannot control him. He will not heal at the end of our leash. But, as we'll find out in further readings, we can have a conversation with him. He does care about us, and he will listen when we appeal to him. When we get to the New Testament, we find the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which introduce us to Jesus. They tell us the story of Jesus. And John starts his Gospel by bringing us back to creation. John chapter 1, verses 1 through 3. God isn't hiding. From the very beginning, he has been revealing himself. How so? Jesus is the God message. Jesus was with God before anything was created. Jesus is God. In fact, without Jesus, nothing would exist, because Father God worked together with Jesus to create everything. Later in the New Testament, Paul picks up on this theme in Colossians 1:15 through 17. He says, we can't see God, but we saw Jesus, the Son of God. Jesus shows us what God looks like, what he acts like, who he is. Jesus is in charge of everything God created. In fact, Jesus is co-creator of everything in heaven and on earth, everything you see, everything you don't see, everything and everyone who seems or is powerful. Jesus had a voice in the creation of all these things, and they were created for his benefit. Before time and space, there's Jesus, and without Jesus, nothing could exist. So, from this writing of Paul, we find that Jesus is present at the creation of the universe, active and involved as creator and co creator. Another aspect of creation that's found in both the Old and New Testament is this: the power of God's words. Psalm 33:9 tells us, "When God spoke, the world came into being. His command framed the universe we live in." This is echoed in the New Testament in Hebrews 11:3. Faith teaches us that everything was created by God's command. What we see was created from what is invisible. So the message in the Bible is clear. God is creator. This is foundational to our faith, and creation is established as a marker, as a waypoint in the human journey, pointing us back to God. Paul writes about this in Romans 1:20. You might say, some people have never heard of God. Not so. All they need do is look around. God's signature is on everything he created. His power and his goodness shine through. So no one can say, I didn't know. Of course, many people want to remove God from his role as creator and boot him out of the universe altogether. A God who doesn't have the power to create doesn't have the power to judge, and the people who want to get rid of God want at all costs to exempt themselves from ever standing before him in judgment. And so they ridicule those who see God's signature in creation because it helps them feel like they can hide from God. Peter, the early Christian leader, predicted this. In 2 Peter 3:5 and 6, he says, they don't want to remember that God spoke the universe into being with his words, and he brought the land up out of the water, the same water that later was used to judge the people of the earth. God is the creator. This universe, this world, your life and mine, they all belong to God. He created us, he designed us, and he has the final say on how we live our lives. In the end, what does creation mean? The 24 elders in the book of Revelation make it clear with their words in Revelation 4:11. Who deserves to be the center of attention? Who deserves our deepest respect? Who deserves to be in charge of everything and everyone? You alone, God, because you created it all. So that's it for creation, our first video. Next time we'll be taking a look at Adam and Eve and how their story threads its way throughout the Bible. I'm Dwight Clow. Thanks for listening. Much love from my home to yours. Have a fantastic day.